All right, welcome. So we're going to be doing 2.2. So make sure that you have the header 2.2 conditional statements written down at the top of your paper. The objective today is to recognize conditional statements and their parts, and to write converses, inverses, and contrapositives of conditionals. Okay, so make sure you have the header right there. All right, so let's go down here. So you're going to write down this box right there. Let's do black. So you're going to write down this right up here. Going sideways. Alright, where am I at? Yep, there we go, right here. You're going to write this whole box down right here. So a conditional statement is an if-then statement. So you're going to make sure off the sides right here. So if P, then Q. So it's an if-then statement. For our hypothesis, we're going to say is part P, and our conclusion is part Q. So we're going to make sure that we have this written down right here. We're mainly going to be using this one. If P is true, if our hypothesis is true, then Q is true. Our conclusion is true. So if our conclusion is true, it means that our hypothesis is true. These are our if-then statements. All right. Make sure you've written them down. Let's keep going. All right. So next, we're going to write down the vocab word. We're going to write down right here the truth value. So the truth value of a conditional statement is either true or false. So we have our conditional statements, the if-then statements, but not all the time are those statements true. So we could say if it is sunny outside, then you live in Orange County. That is not always true, because if it's sunny outside, you could be living in Washington. You can live in New Mexico or New York, so that statement is not always true. So a truth value tells us whether it is true or it is false. Alright? Alright, next we have the vocab word negation right here. So we're going to write negation of a statement of P is the opposite of the statement. And we're going to say that the symbol is, and the capital symbol we'll call it, is not P. So the negation is a statement such as like the sky is blue, the sky is not blue. So the negation is the opposite, that it is not the statement. Okay? Alright, so let's go on, and we're going to write this large text right here down. Alright, so this whole box we're going to write down. So we are going to write this whole box right here, and we can, when you're writing down the box, you can not write down the examples, but make sure that you write down the symbols and how to read it. So we have the conditional, which we talked about, is the hypothesis and the conclusion, if P then Q. The converse is the opposite, so switch, if Q then P. The inverse is negating, so not P, not Q, and the contrapositive is switching it, not Q, then not P. Alright, so we're going to, I learned this from Mr. Smith. He was teaching me some of these neat hand motions right here to help us kind of remember it. So he says, what he says is the conditional is if P, then Q. The converse would just flip them. If Q, then P. Okay, the inverse is not P, not Q, and the contrapositive is we flip them, not Q, not P. So nifty hand motions right there, just as a nice easy tool to help us remember it. So make sure you have all those written down with how to write it and how to read it and the symbols, and we'll use those hand motions tomorrow. Okay, alright, let's keep going. Alright, and then our last section that we have right here, we're going to be talking about equivalent statements. So we're just going to write this whole box down. And so equivalent statements have the same value. So a conditional statement. So if we say, if A is 15, then A is acute. Well, that makes sense. That's true. So we check that off. That makes sense. That's true. Because as A's below is less than 90 degrees, so yes, that would be classified as an acute angle. The converse, though, would be, remember, we're switching them. So you're switching, so we're saying if A is acute, then A is 15. Well, no, that doesn't make sense. That would be false right here. That's false. because A could be 14 and be acute. A could be 80 and be acute. So that would not be a true statement. The inverse would say, remember, if A is not 15, then A is not acute. That also would be false right there. That is false, because if A is 14, then it can also be acute. And the contrapositive is we flip them and we negate both of them. So we're saying if A is not acute, then A is not 15. That would be a true statement right there. So we are, and so the last bit that we have right here, we're going to write down, this statement right here. So this right here is really, oh dang, I cannot box that in. You're going to write down this statement right here. Sorry, my penmanship is terrible today. Okay, so a conditional statement and its contrapositive are equivalent statements. So we said right here, the conditional and our contrapositive, when we looked at this example, they were both true. So they're always going to be true. So if my contrapositive is true, then my conditional is true. If my conditional is true, then my contrapositive is true. So the same thing goes with the converse and the inverse. If the converse is true, the inverse is true. If the inverse is true, the converse is true. They are equivalent statements. Okay? Perfect. So I know that we had a lot of vocab, but we're going to do a lot more examples. Just make sure that you have everything in here written down, and you guys are good to go. All right. See you soon.